Why would prosecutors suddenly abandon multiple allegations against Diddy just days before closing arguments? At first glance, it might look like a win for the disgraced music mogul. But the truth? This move might actually seal his fate. In a case packed with disturbing claims of abuse, manipulation, and a secret criminal empire, federal prosecutors have pulled back, not because they're giving up, but because they're tightening the noose. And behind that legal maneuver is a mountain of testimony. From ex-girlfriends forced into drug-fueled sex rituals, to personal assistants threatened with death if they disobeyed, to celebrities who watched it all unravel behind the scenes. This isn't just another celebrity trial. It's a public unmasking of one of hip-hop's most powerful figures. And what's coming in the courtroom next might be even more explosive than what we've already heard. Just days before closing arguments were set to begin, prosecutors made a move that shocked everyone watching the case. They announced they were no longer pursuing three major allegations against Sean Diddy Combs: attempted kidnapping, attempted arson, and aiding and abetting sex trafficking. On paper, it sounded like a break for Diddy. Headlines ran with phrases like, "Prosecutors drop charges," fueling speculation that the case was falling apart. But that's not what actually happened. The government didn't drop the charges. They dropped specific legal theories connected to those charges. In a letter to the judge, prosecutors explained that this was about streamlining the case for the jury. Instead of asking them to untangle multiple layers of legal definitions, they're focusing on what they believe matters most: the completed crimes. That includes the actual kidnapping of Cassie Ventura and Capricorn Clark, the arson of Kid Cudi's car, and the sex trafficking that prosecutors say Diddy personally orchestrated. This wasn't a step back. It was a calculated step in, a tactic designed to sharpen their argument, eliminate confusion, and make it nearly impossible for the jury to miss the story they're trying to tell. But this wasn't a retreat. It was just the beginning of something darker. To understand why prosecutors made this move, you have to think like a trial lawyer. According to legal experts, this wasn't about mercy. It was about focus. Former federal prosecutors say the government is using a classic strategy: eliminate the noise so the jury hears only the strongest, most undeniable facts. Attempted crimes are harder to prove. They involve intent, speculation, and require jurors to fill in the blanks. But completed crimes? Those come with hard evidence, witnesses, and receipts. That's why the prosecution ditched theories like attempted arson and aiding and abetting sex trafficking, and instead zeroed in on the violent, fully executed acts they claim Diddy carried out himself. They want the jury to see a clear picture, not a man surrounded by bad influences, but a man in control, running the show. One legal expert called it a golden cage. By removing weaker allegations, they've boxed Diddy into a tighter corner. Fewer distractions, fewer chances for the defense to poke holes, and no complicated legal loopholes to squeeze through. And the stories backing those charges? They're almost too insane to believe. The government's case isn't built on theory. It's built on testimony. And some of that testimony has been downright chilling. Cassie Ventura, who dated Diddy for over a decade, told the court about a world of abuse behind closed doors. She described being forced into what Diddy called freak-offs, drug-fueled sex parties with male escorts held in secret hotel rooms. The drugs weren't optional, neither was the sex. And if she resisted, there were threats, violence, emotional blackmail, sometimes all three. Another woman, known in court only as Jane, told a nearly identical story. A single mother, she said her rent was paid by Diddy, but that support came at a cost. She claimed he recorded their encounters, used the footage as leverage, and demanded she participate in hotel nights that left her feeling trapped and violated. Her breaking point came when she read Cassie's lawsuit and realized she wasn't alone. Then came the financial bombshell. Cassie revealed that Diddy paid her $20 million to quietly settle her civil suit, an amount prosecutors argue was meant to silence her forever. But the settlement didn't keep her off the witness stand. She told the jury, "I can't carry the shame anymore. What's right is right." But it wasn't just his girlfriends. Even his own employees turned on him. When prosecutors say Diddy ran a criminal enterprise, they're not just talking about the women. They're talking about the people on his payroll, the insiders who kept the machine running. 6 of Diddy's former personal assistants took the stand. Some testified under immunity. Their job descriptions? Buying drugs, stocking hotel rooms for freak-offs, driving him to confront rivals while he was armed, cleaning up after violent outbursts, and, in some cases, helping cover it all up. Capricorn Clark, one of his longest-serving assistants, gave perhaps the most disturbing testimony. She told jurors that after a piece of Diddy's jewelry went missing, she was forced to take lie detector tests for a week straight. And when she was hired, she was warned that her past work for Suge Knight made her a potential threat. Her exact words? "He told me if anything happened, he would have to kill me." Then there's the testimony of Mia, another assistant who says she was raped by Diddy and sexually assaulted on at least 2 other occasions. She described working under constant fear, saying every day felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and you'd be next. These weren't assistants. They were witnesses, and one by one, they painted a picture of a man obsessed with control, willing to use anyone and anything to protect his empire. And when rivals got in his way, witnesses say he brought the war to their doorsteps. This wasn't just about sex and control behind closed doors. Prosecutors say when Diddy felt threatened in the industry, he brought that same energy to the streets. Kid Cudi, real name Scott Mescudi, took the stand and told the jury about a terrifying incident in 2012. After Diddy found out Cudi was romantically involved with Cassie, things escalated fast. Not long after, Cudi's Porsche was firebombed. The car exploded. No one was hurt, but the message was loud and clear. Cudi said he confronted Diddy in person later, asking him point-blank if he was behind the attack. Diddy looked him in the eye and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." But Cudi told jurors that stare, cold and unblinking, said everything. And that wasn't the only confrontation. Another witness, David James, described a night when Diddy, heavily armed, forced him to drive to a diner where Suge Knight was eating. According to testimony, Diddy was ready for a face-off, dragging his assistant along for backup. Cassie remembered that night too. She said she begged him not to do anything stupid, but the rage had already taken over. By the time they got there, Knight was gone. But the incident left James shaken. "That's when I realized," he told the court, "my life was in danger just being around him." Prosecutors used these stories to show a pattern. Diddy didn't just control people in private. He used intimidation, violence, and fear to dominate his competition in public. But as the case neared its end, Diddy's team made a final gamble. After 6 weeks of explosive testimony, Diddy's defense team made a move that surprised even legal analysts. They rested their case without calling a single witness. Instead of trying to counter the parade of accusers with their own narratives, they submitted just a few pieces of evidence and immediately asked the judge for a judgment of acquittal. Their argument? That the prosecution hadn't proven the key elements, especially when it came to whether Diddy's employees actually knew about or willingly participated in sex trafficking. But it wasn't just what the defense didn't do, it was what they tried to do next that raised eyebrows. According to courtroom sources, Diddy's team planned to bring up current global events, including the Iran conflict, during their closing argument. The government shut that down fast. Prosecutor Maureen Comey warned the court that introducing politics or government spending into the case would be crossing a line. If they tried it, she said, they'd object on the spot. The judge reminded the defense that they had already agreed not to go there. Diddy's lawyer responded calmly, "Nothing to worry about, Judge." But behind that confidence was a risky, last-minute strategy to distract the jury with something bigger than the case itself. With no witnesses, no direct denials from the stand, and only thin rebuttals, the defense has placed all its chips on one bet: that the jury won't buy the government's story. So now, with no more evidence coming, it all comes down to what the jury believes. The jury now faces one of the most high-profile, emotionally charged decisions in recent memory. And they're doing it with a mountain of evidence on the table. Over 34 witnesses, 6 weeks of testimony, hundreds of pieces of evidence, including security footage, financial records, hotel logs, drug purchases, and disturbing first-hand accounts. Federal agents walked them through property raids that turned up unregistered weapons, stacks of cash, and bags of drugs, all allegedly tied to the same empire that produced platinum albums and billion-dollar deals. They've heard from women who say they were blackmailed, from employees who feared for their lives, and from a music industry that may have protected this behavior for decades. The defense claims it's all being taken out of context, that this was a complicated man in messy relationships, not a kingpin running a secret trafficking ring. But prosecutors say it's all connected. Behind the music, behind the money, and behind the image was an organized criminal network, and Diddy was at the top of it. So the jury is left with one question. Was this just a man with flaws, or a man with a plan? And while closing arguments begin, one thing is clear. As the closing arguments unfold and the jury prepares to deliberate, possibly as soon as June 30th, the stakes couldn't be higher. A conviction could mean life behind bars for one of hip-hop's biggest icons. It would send shockwaves through the music industry, forcing a reckoning on power, privilege, and accountability. But an acquittal, that would raise even more questions about justice. And what happens when fame meets influence? Sean "Diddy" Combs has always been a larger-than-life figure, a symbol of success and swagger. Now his legacy hangs in the balance, caught between the dazzling spotlight and the darkest allegations of abuse and control. The question isn't just what the jury will decide, it's what this case means for the culture around it. Will this be the moment the truth finally breaks through? Or will it be another story lost in the noise? Only time and the jury will tell. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. For more celebrity scandals, political news, and more, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Now Famous feed. Your support means the world to us. Thank you.